a government that's determined to create a situation where there's 100% security for Israel, which I think is impossible without some sort of peace treaty.
The world watching to see how Israel will respond after Iran's massive drone and missile attack on Saturday.
Israel's war cabinet is meeting right now to discuss potential retaliation as world leaders, including President Biden, urge restraint.
It marked the first time Iran has attacked Israel directly from its own soil. Explosions could be heard widely, including in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv.
More than 300 projectiles were launched. First came over 170 drones and 30 cruise missiles, all shot down before reaching Israel.
Well, what happens if American bases are attacked in Iraq or Syria? There's all sorts of places that the Iranians can hit through proxies. And let's keep in mind that this attack on Israel was a measured attack because they didn't use Hezbollah. Hezbollah could do immediate damage and considerable damage to Israel. And, you know, the Iranians are holding that back. But should this escalate, Hezbollah will be pulled into it.
I think the next thing we might see is a large-scale Israeli campaign in the north of Israel going into southern Lebanon to attack Hezbollah. And the main reason for that is that Israel is justifiably fearful of Hezbollah being able to do on a much larger scale what Hamas did down in the south in Gaza on October 7 by coming across the fence to attack Israelis. If Hezbollah attempts to do that in the north of the country, that's a large populated area. It really does present an existential threat to the future security of Israel.
This morning, the world on edge as Israel weighs its response to that swarm of more than 300 Iranian missiles and drones early Sunday, targeting military installations in Israel, some of them streaking right over the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound.
This is extraordinary to me, but we're told that roughly half of the ballistic missiles fired by Iran failed to launch or crashed.
It was one of the largest salvos of ballistic and cruise missiles ever fired. But Israel's missile defense system, along with a combined international effort led by the U.S., intercepting 99% of those threats, including more than 100 ballistic missiles, according to the IDF. U.S. forces alone taking out nearly 90 drones and missiles long before they reached Israel's borders.
Iran's attack came with careful signaling. Its government warned Israel's allies of the strikes and said they were punishment for an assassination in Syria, and that Iran now considered the matter closed.
Our advice to all the supporters of the Zionist regime is to appreciate Iran's responsible and measured action and dissuade the Zionist regime from committing more wicked acts, which would bring incalculable consequences.
But the country's military chief did say just a short time ago that Israel will indeed respond. World leaders are urging Israel not to retaliate, including the U.S., making it clear that if it attacks Iran, it will do so alone. President Biden still reaffirming his overall support for Israel, though, adding, "Together with our partners, we defeated that attack."
But historically, this is the first time the United States fought side by side with Israel since the State of Israel was organized in 1948. And by that I mean Central Command, a warfighting headquarters in the Middle East, organized a multinational organization and coordinated it through 6 countries. And that is our most experienced warfighting headquarters. Israel is used to fighting unilaterally, so what Central Command did was really significant. And just think of this, Stuart. We had Arab nations fighting alongside of Israel's capability against Iran. That is also historic.
This was a fairly symbolic attack that the Iranians conducted. I think a lot of the drones were decoys. They weren't armed. And the Iranians did hit some Israeli bases. We don't know what the damage is. The United States is trying to portray this as an absolute success, but let's wait to see. Okay. And keep in mind, the swarming attacks can be conducted from any of these countries, including Yemen. And again, let's look at the cost of defending Israel. It was $1 billion. That's the estimate so far. of all these anti-missiles and anti-drone weapons. That's a lot of money. You can't do this forever.
Video circulating online verified by ABC News showing one of the very few Iranian missiles that hit their target, causing minor damage to an Israeli Air Force base.
For Tehran and its Revolutionary Guard Corps, they have unsurprisingly vowed to retaliate even more harshly to any Israeli action. The bigger the Israeli attack, the larger the Iranian response, and the greater the risk of escalation into uncontrolled regional conflict.
And in Tehran today, a massive rally in support of the attack on Israel. Iranian leaders signaling they don't want an escalation, saying that after their assault, they consider the matter closed. But tonight, Iran warning Israel if it takes additional action, Iran will respond within seconds.
You know, we can understand why. No one wants a third world war. But Israel doesn't seem to get the leeway to retaliate that other nations do when they are attacked.
There's an unreality in how I think both Biden in recent weeks and the Albanese government have been talking about Israel. There's this sort of fantasy world that ceasefires must happen straight away. They say there could be no future for Hamas in Gaza. But the only way Hamas is not going to have a future in Gaza is if the Israeli Defense Force defeats them in battle. Hamas is not going to give up its military capabilities, and nor is Hezbollah in Lebanon. So it's all very well for, left-centre governments to sort of talk about the importance of peace and the value of restraint, but they really need to focus on the reality of what's going on in the Middle East, and that is Israel is fighting for its life.